It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley. He has a morning off. I'm Gary McNamara. I'm here. Bunch of different stories we want to make sure we get in before the show ends today. The women's activist sportswear brand XXXY Athletics is suing the state of Colorado over a recent state law that the company claims would interfere with its ability to market its message. The lawsuit takes aim at the state for passing a law and amending the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, which defines gender expression to include chosen name, how an individual chooses to be addressed. The laws state that the citizens of Colorado have a right to access public accommodations and advertising that are free of discrimination on that basis. Now, you knew there was going to be a lawsuit on it because obviously this law, if implemented and going after places like XXXY Athletics, is violating their freedom of speech in advertising. The company's lawsuit claims that the state's new legislation would make it illegal for the brand to carry out certain viral marketing campaign techniques it has used since launching last year. XXXY Athletics, in their advertising, customer interactions, and elsewhere, to refer to transgender identifying individuals with their given names or their biologically accurate language. XXXY Athletics can no longer speak the truth in pursuit of its mission. XXXY Athletics can no longer call men men, the lawsuit states. Even worse, the act coerces a company to speak against its principles and alter the meaning of its core message. If XXXY Athletics refuses, the company faces cease and desist orders, expensive investigations, hearings, and civil and criminal penalties. The Attorney General's office has declined to comment on the lawsuit. XXXY founder Jennifer Say provided a statement to Fox News Digital insisting that the law would hinder her company's marketing strategies and the overall movement to oppose trans athletes in girls' and women's sports. What is happening in Colorado is a threat to anyone who speaks the truth about biological reality and who stands up for the rights of women and girls. XXXY Athletics communicates often and broadly on the reality that men and women are different, and our mission as a brand is to empower female athletes also to speak up and protect women's sports. Laws like this in Colorado forces the citizens to adhere to an ideology that is in violation of actual truth. They want to silence everyone. Wow. Yeah, you knew that was coming, though. We all knew that was coming. Say's brand has regularly used its social media platform to bring attention to the instances of biological males competing in girls and women's sports around the country while promoting XXXY merchandise. The company also produces original commercials that feature its brand ambassadors, and some of those include references to trans athletes being men or boys. Colorado is already facing a lawsuit from one of its own school districts over the state laws requiring schools to allow biologically male transgender athletes to compete in girls' sports. By the way, I guess Dad was right. The radical transgender movement is, again, another example of what Dad said. People want to be BS'd, and the bigger the BS, the more they want more of it. Please lie to me. Please BS me. Let me live in a delusional fantasy world. That's what I like. I like that. Let me live in my delusional fantasy world. BS me more. Feed me more. Pile it higher and deeper. You have a PhD in gender studies, so pile it high and deep, because that's what it is. It's a load of BS. And the people of Colorado apparently wish to be BS'd. The majority of voters who have put so many Democrats in office want to be BS'd. It makes them feel good. I remember when Dad told me that. I remember so well. And I said, Dad, you're wrong. People want the truth. And he went, no, they don't. He was right. He was absolutely right. So, yeah, that's we'll see where that goes. I don't think they're probably going to lose that. That'll get all the way up to the Supreme Court, I bet you. Now, this one, here we go again. As Democrats this entire week are trying to figure out what to do. You know, we've had the stories. The $20 million they want to spend to figure out how to talk to men. What's the syntax? What kind of accent should we use? I can see part of the $20 million study is the Tim Walz jazz hands masculinity, what will convince males to vote for Democrats? Will they have to examine that? Because remember, Tim Walz says that Republicans were scared to death of his form of masculinity. Yeah, I can't imagine saying that. I can't. I don't even know how I would approach that, what he did, if, you know, whatever I was doing. If I was running for public office or even during the show. I appreciate that all of you have come to the radio show here in Red Eye Radio because you understand we have the red because we are red-blooded masculine men. I appreciate that you've come to this show for Eric and my unique form of masculinity that everybody is afraid. I can't imagine saying that. Everybody is afraid. Anybody who disagrees with me is afraid of my masculinity. Really? I don't think I could sell that without laughing. But this is another one where it's just like, wow, because that's the one, how to talk to a men. And then they're talking about, well, okay, are we using the right language? Maybe the words are too complicated. Don't use equity. Don't use intersectionality. Don't use those type of words. No, it's the words. No, it's what the words mean. But they're going through this entire thing. How do we communicate with people? How do we do this? Well, this is just as bizarre. Political writer Bill Scheer floated a list of 21 heavy hitters, ranging from former Biden government officials to comedians yesterday to form a Democratic shadow cabinet to take on the Trump administration. This is an idea. Listen to this one. Scheer sought to look beyond the presidential wannabes and highlight accomplished people with the ability to speak plainly and the credibility to puncture the Trump administration's often Orwellian narratives for his list. One of his examples included New York Attorney General Letitia James serving as shadow U.S. Attorney General after her multiple lawsuits against President Donald Trump. Perhaps the most effective Democrats in the country right now are the 22 Democratic state attorneys generals tying up Trump's executive orders in the courts. But only one can say she won a civil fraud case against the Trump family business with a $450 million judgment, and that's New York's Letitia James. He wrote that she should be one of the main representatives convincing the American people that Trump isn't the way. They're completely delusional. Scheer looked beyond politicians and former cabinet members for more unorthodox suggestions, such as comedian Jon Stewart for Secretary of Veterans Affairs and former Golden Globes host Nikki Glazer as administrator of the Small Business Administration. Oh, okay, hear me out on this one. This is a quote. What is a comedian but a small business entrepreneur and traveling content salesperson, she wrote. Of course, Nikki's value to a Democratic shadow cabinet is not her deep knowledge of how government regulations impact small business. It's that she's become America's roaster-in-chief who can fearlessly pick apart the biggest celebrities from Tom Brady to Alec Baldwin. They're nuts! God. Is this... Okay, no, it's Fox News. It's not the Babylon Bee. He also suggested Bill Nye to lead the Environmental Protection Agency and for billionaire Mark Cuban to be the Secretary of Commerce because, as we know, Mark Cuban was so effective in his endorsement of Kamala Harris. That really worked out well, didn't it? Let me see. He listed more conventional Democrats, figures such as Arizona Katie Hobbs, Governor, whatever. Okay. That's it. Was it a slow news day yesterday, Fox? You carried that article and went into a lot of specifics of it. I don't even know who is this guy. Oh, political writer Bill Scheer. Wow. What a loser. I'm sorry. What an absolute loser. What are they thinking? I'm just excited to come in tomorrow. I can't wait to go to sleep. In a little over probably about an hour and a half, I'll be asleep. I can't wait to wake up to see what idiocy comes from the left again today. Here's another new idea. So what? Political writer Bill Scheer was saying, okay, no, they got it wrong. Here's what to do. Let's have a shadow government from the other side, and we'll pick a mixture of comedians and politicians to scream at Trump, and that'll work. God, they're just so bad. Oh. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Do the cooking at home? Need a strategy to make meals for more than a day? Give consideration to Plandovers. Julie Garden Robinson of North Dakota State University says this take on leftovers
allow you to cook once and eat 2 or 3 times, so they can save you time and money in the long run.
And like the name implies, Plandovers are just that.
It all comes down to planning, and we certainly advise that people should plan their meals because that gives you a game plan for your upcoming week.
So if you shop for groceries for the week, select items to cook one night for dinner, then use the leftovers to use in another dish the next evening. Garden Robinson says you can even mix and match Plandovers for dinner creations.
It allows you to take what you have in your fridge or in your cupboard and use them with some basic ways to make your own casserole or your own soup or some other dish.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. I found this really interesting. I just want to play just a minute of this. It was on News Nation yesterday. You know, we had mentioned that the Democrats are now questioning whether they should use words like equity. Well, if you want to know what equity is, it's right here. And this is where this is from News Nation. Brian Enton, who said, I met with a USDA whistleblower. He says the Biden administration forgave farm loans for only non-white farmers, and when they were told it was illegal, continued to secretly do it. Here's part of that story from News Nation.
When former President Joe Biden left Washington, D.C., he was leaving behind a DEI secret involving American farmers and $800 million in taxpayer money. And a United States Department of Agriculture whistleblower is now sounding the alarm.
It was to pay off anyone who wasn't a white male, loan. That was the only qualification for this loan forgiveness.
And what was the reaction?
So it was really silent. They were trying to keep this hushed because of the obvious implications of race-based loan forgiveness.
Race-based loan forgiveness. It's in black and white, buried in the American Rescue Plan Act. The United States Secretary of Agriculture shall provide a payment in an amount up to 120% of the outstanding indebtedness of each socially disadvantaged farmer or rancher. The act explicitly lays out who's considered socially disadvantaged.
So just to be clear, if you were American Indian, Alaskan Native, Asian Black, African American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, Hispanic, or Latino, and you were in that group, you were told you didn't have to pay your bills, essentially?
Yes, that's correct, and that your loan would be forgiven up to 120% of the loan value.
To me, it was combating racism with more racism. I couldn't believe that it was happening in today's age.
James Dunlap owns a small family farm in Baker City, Oregon. He works 2 other jobs to keep his farm afloat, but did not qualify for the loan forgiveness because he's white.
I knew what they were saying was that minority farmers were going to have their loans forgiven for no reason other than they decided to, they being the government.
There it is right there. That's illegal. You know, when they say socially disadvantaged, it means they're not using its race is what they meant. But they excluded, as I said, every single person except a white male. Didn't matter your social economic status, or should I say your economic status. Social seems to be, that's another word that now has a different, a different definition. But interesting to see what will happen with that, because I'm sure there's an investigation into that. I'm telling you, I mean, just so much was just completely screwed up with the Biden administration. And if they get power again, they would want to do the exact same thing again. And I dare say that if they feel that they got away with a lot of this and no one was held accountable, expect under another Democrat administration that all of these things would happen again. If nobody is held accountable, then they'll do it again. And even if people are held accountable, they may do it again because they don't seem to care. I can't get into every single mind of every single insane liberal that exists out there. You know, that's a great question. And we've talked about it, you know, some of the time. How do you get to this point? Well, when it comes down to it, I don't care. All I know is the things that they're doing are absolutely unconstitutional, and they have to stop, and somebody has to be held accountable for it. I've seen it on social media the last couple of days. Look, Republicans, you're in power. Hold somebody accountable for something somewhere, sometime. We're being told all this stuff, and it's like, okay, we see this problem here. This was unconstitutional here. This shouldn't have happened here. This shouldn't have happened here. But nothing ever happens. Nobody's held accountable, and if they're not held accountable, it's going to happen again. So that's where we stand right now. But yeah, that's really interesting. They were told, sorry, you don't get it. You're white.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. He's not here. I am. Just a couple of other cuts I want to play. It was interesting because when the stock market boomed yesterday, in response to the president saying that they're delaying the European tariffs. By the way, the top news on Fox News.com is Trump saying that Canada is considering an offer to become the 51st state in order to get the Golden Dome for free. Instead, they have to pay $60 million, and he said they're considering it. No, they're not. You can move on from that one, Mr. President. That's not going to happen. You know it's not going to happen. Not one Republican in the United States wants that to happen. Not one Republican. Every one of you listening right now, if you're a Republican, you do not want Canada to become the 51st state, do you? And why is that? Because you get 2 more Democrat senators and you get a ton more Republicans in Congress that would make it much harder for the Republicans to ever win again. So, Mr. President, please stop it. It's stupid. When you tell the same joke 1,000 times, it's no longer funny, especially when it makes absolutely no sense to the party that you lead. So move on. All right, there you go. I said, because Fox News has it at the top of like it's going to happen. Like at the top there, like this is going to happen. It's really going to happen. It's really going to happen. They want the Golden Dome, so they're going to become the 51st state because the president said they get the dome for free. It's not going to happen. Jeez. Oh, man, stop telling the same joke over and over and over again. But when the stock market went up yesterday, I did see some analysis saying the market is convinced this is the worst the tariffs will get. That the president is not going to go through on any of the threats. Because now it's obvious that they recognize that it's going to increase prices. And they won't. And this is something that we talked about early on and we're criticized for. But we always said, well, the president probably will be pretty sensitive to any price increase. And when he was out there, when the administration was out there every day saying prices, there will be no inflation, there won't be any price increases, that the exporters, they're the ones that pay for it. And we went, no, they're not. 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 Finally, over the last week, the president has admitted over and over again that the consumer pays the tariff, which is why he's telling Walmart and other companies to eat the tariffs. So, as we have always stated, with tariffs, whether justifiable or not, we talk economics. It's the economics of it. And if you add a price increase anywhere along the line, whether it's justified, for example, against China or any other country, you're going to have an effect. And that effect will be one or a combination of the 3 things we're going to mention. Price increases, less profitable companies, layoffs. Every time a tariff is put in, there's pressure, depending on what the amount of the tariff is, across the board there. That's just basic economics. And one of the reasons I saw it yesterday, you had Trump's economic advisor, Kevin Hassert. He was on, they were on with Kernan on CNBC. And I don't know where they got the number from. And when I saw this audio cut, I went, interesting. I want to see how Hassert will answer this question, because they make the case that the iPhone would cost $3,500 if Apple were forced to manufacture it in the U.S. And this goes back to Trump earlier this week, or was it late last week, stating that they need to build it here. And here was a response from which shows that everybody knows they're concerned about prices. Here we go.
And we're trying to figure out an off-ramp for Apple. It'd be a $3,000 iPhone if they tried to make everything here. $3,500. $3,500 for a good one, the kind you'd like, probably. Yes. But
No,
what's the
I'm
offer?
a smoke signal kind of guy.
What's the supply? Yeah, what's the supply chain issue? I mean, what is Tim Cook supposed to do?
Right. Well, we'll see how it works out. But
there it goes. We'll see how it works out, and he changed the topic to something else. He didn't say, no, it's not going to go up, which, again, means, at least in our opinion, that, the consideration is there. They're worried about prices. And that's why the market, when I read that analysis yesterday, I don't know whether the analysis is true or not, because when you talk about the market, people who buy stocks, who is the market? It's hundreds of thousands, millions of people that are involved in buying stocks. But I found it interesting that seemed to come forward, that the stock market now believes, Wall Street now believes, this is the worst tariffs will get because the president keeps backing off. And so it means you don't get what you want. You don't get your stated goal, which is to even trade across the board. And if you don't get that, then you have to ask the question, well, what are the tariffs for? What is it for? If the concern is not, well, we even said it the other day when it came to both the Hyundai and then the U.S. Steel deal. We went, yeah, but the profits, the president was against that a month ago. He didn't want companies investing in the United States and taking the profits overseas, because you're still buying from a foreign manufacturer who's profiting it, who gets our dollars, and we get the product. And as I said, that's where the confusion comes in, where it's like, okay, we wish the president would be specific. What is the actual goal of the tariffs? Not 5 different goals that one contradicts another. What is it? And right now, I still don't know. I still don't know what the end game is for the president on tariffs, because he may tell me what they are, but it doesn't match what he's doing. This is another audio cut here. This is Elon Musk. And we had said this last week. We were probably one of the few conservative/libertarian talk show hosts that were talking about this on a consistent basis. We talked about the good things of the big, beautiful bill. We talked about how it was great that the the culturally liberal things were being axed out, and there were cuts being made, but the spending way outdid any of the tax cuts. And we said increasing the debt, whether it's $3.3 trillion, whether it's $5 trillion over what the baseline was, well, you might also say Doge is dead. And now you're getting more people coming out. We played DeSantis in Florida yesterday going after the Republican Congress. Here's Elon. And we said, if you're going after the Congress, you've got to go after the president, because the president is the leader of the Republican Party, and he's gone after those who want to cut more, including Chip Roy. We know that MAGA wanted Chip Roy primaried because he wanted more cuts. And we thought we talked about that late last week, how amazing that was, because the excitement of the beginnings of MAGA came when Paul Ryan became the Speaker of the House and John Boehner was gone, and the new Speaker would not renegotiate the horrible spending of the Democrats. The swamp was born of Republicans who did not want to cut the budget enough. MAGA was promoting that the swamp had to go because we needed to cut. Fast forward 9.5 years later, MAGA is demanding that those who wish to cut be primaried. And everybody was pretty quiet on it. We weren't. We told you the good parts about the bill, and we told you overall, though, Doge is dead. We're never going to solve the budget problem because you had a great opportunity here and nothing happened. And with all the hype and hoopla over Doge, The $5,000 check going to everybody, $2 trillion being cut, $1 trillion being cut. Way overhyped, pure BS, was never going to happen. We called them out on it. We said be reasonable in what you can do. And now, as DeSantis said, nothing, absolutely nothing. And Elon Musk yesterday said he's not pleased with the bill.
So, I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both.
Yeah. And that's sad because it was a great opportunity when Doge was started. When the president suggested it, I said, this is the greatest thing a president's ever done because there really isn't an upside to cutting. I said, but it'll be the worst thing that he does if they just go through all this hype and hoopla and then just let it die. And it looks like that's what's happening to Doge. And that's a shame. All the excitement was built up. And we question, as we did last week, we said, what's the purpose? Why did you do it? If you knew you could never get to the point of actually making the cuts, why did you do it? And why did you really accelerate it? Because they really accelerated, the promotion of the cuts and the $5,000 Doge check that you would get back and everything else. And the question going back and forth, how would you get the $5,000 check? And would everybody get the $5,000? There was never going to be a $5,000 check, and we said it at the time. Why? Because we're old and we've studied the budget for 40 years now. And we know exactly what's in the budget, and we know exactly what it's spent on. So we knew you were never going to get $2 trillion in cuts, $150 billion. We were hoping you could get $100 billion and actually stick it in the bill and decrease the entire bill by $100 billion. But we said we would have been happy because it would have been a great accomplishment if they could have just risen the budget, just the rate of inflation. Keep everything that's in there, even the stuff from 2019, that you have now, all the additional spending because of COVID that isn't needed. But if you still just said for the next 10 years, we go at the rate of inflation because of economic growth at that point, that would be the best thing that you could do to start getting on the right track, and they couldn't even do that. Well, I don't want to make it sound like it's easy to do that. It wouldn't have been easy to do that. It would have been still hard to do that. But it doesn't help to hype it as they did for the first few months of his administration and then drop it. Nobody's talking about Doge except when they talk about modernizing computer systems, for example, in the Treasury Department or whatever. But the cut part of it is gone. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just looking at this story here. You read the story about Obama's Secret Service agent detail, an altercation. Two of the agents, two women, got into a fight outside his house as the former president's security detail grappled next to a police vehicle, according to reports. In audio before the fight shared by Real Clear Politics reporter Susan Crabtree, one of the Secret Service agents was reportedly heard calling for a supervisor as she threatened to attack her colleague. Can I get a supervisor down to Delta 2 immediately before I whoop this girl's posterior, the agent in the audio said. This comes just a little after a year. There was a Secret Service agent that was removed from duty after she got into a physical fight with her fellow agents. Wow. What? Come on, even Nicolas Cage in that movie about him being a Secret Service agent, it was him, right? Can't remember the name of the movie. For the former first lady. Remember that one? And she hated him, but she made him work for her. There was some unprofessional stuff there, but this? What in the world? The individuals involved were suspended from duty, and this matter is the subject of an internal investigation. The Secret Service has a very strict code of conduct for all employees, and any behavior that violates the code is unacceptable.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.